Well, good morning, everyone. The Cape Breton Originals here, Marie and Janet, as usual. But today we have, again, the Nova Scotia for Equalization Fairness, Russ Green and Charles Sampson with us. Second time on the show. So we've got a lot to talk about today, and it's got to do with money and CBRM. Real shock. So, Russ, if you want to, go ahead and let people know what's going on, or Charles, fill us in, guys.
Okay. Well, we had a letter to the editor and today to our mayor and council that this extra $15 million that Tim Houston, followed through on it and kept his promise about how it's to be used. The first time that we get a positive flow of equalization in the CBRM, it shouldn't be used to build something that's a luxury item. We have things here that we have to address for the reason that Nova Scotia gets equalization. Our tax rates, our commercial tax rates, our residential tax rates, that's why equalization comes here. So the first time we have a positive flow, and I say because we've always gotten it, we get 15 million, but we pay back 22. So that's a negative every year. So even if this year we have to pay back the 22, we receive 30. So we have a positive 8 or 9 million, like your report says. That money should be used to address the reasons why Nova Scotia receives equalization. We all know that the need of a library is very great for our community. It's been there. It's been needed for many years. We have an old, outdated library, and it's time for a new one. But we really need to address the issues that Cape Breton has with regards, and why equalization comes to Nova Scotia is for three things that the Constitution says: promoting equal opportunities for the well-being of all Canadians, furthering economic development to reduce disparity, and to provide us essential public services at reasonable quality to all Canadians, and to equalize taxes. So to us, if you're going to receive this kind of money, if you show the government, federal and provincial, that you're going to use it for the purposes that it's sent to this province and sent for us, then you're only showing them that we're being fiscally responsible with Canadian taxpayers' money. Because let's not forget, this money comes from every taxpayer in Canada through the federal taxes. So to us, you have to use it responsibly. And for me, just a simple thing, and I'll let Charlie have a talk. For me, if you were to just equalize just the commercial tax rate with that, businesses would be enticed to come here. We've heard time and time again that businesses won't come here because we have the highest commercial tax rate in Canada. It's like the second highest now, I believe. But anyway, they won't come here. If you just equalize our commercial tax rates, then maybe we'll start seeing more and more industry and business come to Cape Breton, which will get more people working and more employment and create more tax base so that we can build our libraries and get people working and stop, maybe help with poverty and everything else. So it's up to us to do that.
Should we be writing to Daryl Brookschwager, since he's on that committee, on that board of committees, I believe? Isn't that what we read, that he's actually a council member that's on the board for something to do with taxes for commercial
properties? Yes, the PVSC.
Well, that's a Property Valuation Service Board, and they're the board that regulates the taxes that a commercial property pays and their tax rates and what the assessment values are.
That's another question.
You remember back, but the NSEF had a major gripe with him about a year ago, and that was over Nova Scotia Power's assessment. The Nova Scotia Power brags in their annual report that they've got I think like $5 or $6 billion worth of assets here in CBRM, but they don't they don't talk about the fact that they only assess their value at $200 million. $200 million, when you have $8 billion, we're not getting the taxes from that. So they only pay, and Charlie, you can answer to this, you know more about it than I do, but they pay a lower rate of taxes on the low assessment that they have.
Sure they would.
It's a sweetheart deal.
Right.
Yeah, it's like we made them our Valentine. Aren't they just so sweet?
Can someone, does anyone know about the waterfront and why it was only assessed at $3 million? And is that still the going assessment?
I don't know that. Charlie, do you know that?
No.
What property are you referring to, Marie?
It is the waterfront property. I know that Mary Campbell had mentioned it in a couple of articles, that the assessment's only at like $3 million. And Mike Calloway has something to say about it where it's like, yeah, you can't even be like putting that in you're going to have to read the article that I found here.
Which
Mary
article?
Campbell, let me see here. I think it was the waterfront.
Hold on. I'll bring it up. I got it. I'm
Yeah.
adding it to the screen now. All right. So this is the
Okay.
waterfront document that Marie is referring to.
Yeah, let's hope that it's the right one, guys. I've had all kinds on the screen today.
Excuse me one sec.
Yes, here it is. So the money could. I'm just gonna end her article here for us here. Okay. She wanted to say that the money could be used to leverage additional funding from other levels of government. Certainly, that would be the case with the library. Okay, to date, the CBRM has had no joy in its search for provincial and federal funding for this project. I have written extensively about my own theory, which is that the municipality allowed a private developer far too much influence over the process, resulting in an initial funding application that proposed a municipal contribution of $6 million to $3 million, which was to take the form of land, which was not an eligible contribution. Now that's where the link is, I believe, guys, right there, where it's explaining that for some reason, our waterfront property was assessed as only $3 million, where the library is to go.
Oh, okay. That's
So I'm wondering, has this been? I was hoping somebody might tell me, has this been like rectified yet? Because clearly our values have gone up quite a bit in the CBRM, just
right.
judging from what people are selling their properties for.
You know, Marie, there's a lot of problems with the property valuation and the assessments throughout the CBRM.
Clearly.
That's a whole show in itself. And there are people from the community here who have been fighting that for decades. It's not equalization related or so.
No.
Been fighting it for decades. And there's actually some commercial properties that, depending on who owns it, the values are different. Like there's a hotel that was valued at like, I can't remember if it was $5 or $7 million when one owner had it, and then it was valued at $2 million when another one had it.
Okay.
And then when someone else had it, was valued at $7 million. It's like it depends on who owns it.
All right, gotcha.
I
I kind of took us off on another arm there, guys. Sorry, but it was bothering me when I read it today. $3 million for a waterfront property in CBRM, which is like the main prime of where the library is to be built, seems like. That's not a proper assessment. So anyway,
and you're probably right on, but it's just what happens around here.
It's what happens.
They play around with that stuff as well. I can remember a number of years back when I appealed my assessment, and it went up. And I have a small home, and the late Dr. Boyd lives down the road from me, and he's on waterfrontage, and he's got a home there at the time that was assessed at over $600,000. And she sold. He died, and she had it up for sale, I think, for $1 million. And at the time, they put mine up 16.79%, and his went up 4.22%.
Interesting.
And he had plenty of waterfront each and everything. And when I looked at the assessments, I found that the much more expensive homes went up by a lower percentage than just the general home.
That's very interesting to me always, because
they can manipulate that, and they do so. Right? So it's ridiculous. It's like government when they're behind what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know what, Marie and Gina, there's a gentleman you should probably talk to, Frank Ellman from the community. He's a retired lawyer. And
all right, let me know his name. Give me a link to him later if you wouldn't mind, Russ. We'll look into that.
You might want to have a little talk with him and maybe just have a little chat with him one day and sit with him. He's a wealth of knowledge on it, and he knows that there's a lot of problems with it. He's been fighting it for years, decades, actually.
He used to be Elman and Kuna?
What's that?
Elman and Kuna? Did he not have a different?
Yeah, he was a lawyer, and
I remember his practice.
You know them.
I know them personally.
He's retired now, but we've talked to him several times about the issues of course, as you know, with the NSEF, a lot of people come to you with an issue that they have because they want to get it out there or whatever. And we are sitting with him a few times and having a talk with Mr. Allman about it. And I mean, it'll blow your mind to hear what.
That'll be good for us, Janet. Yeah, we need some information like that.
Info, Russ.
Okay. So we'll let you get back to what you were all trying to say, though, guys. Sorry to take you off on a tangent there.
Yeah, no worries. And I mean, I don't want to tie up everyone's time here, but I just wanted to go over a few things here about, when we finally receive our equalization, we have an obligation to use it so that it benefits all residents of the CBRM. That's the biggest thing.
Yes, that's
and
the big one.
That's a big one. And lowering taxation and using it to address high taxation, those are big problems. But I wanted to talk quickly about Dr. James Buchanan. Now, you probably don't know who he was. He was a Nobel laureate and so forth. But he was one of the fathers who designed equalization. And he was the one he was one of the people in Canada who dealt with the federal government when equalization was coming into effect. And he said, and I'm going to read him for quotes, word for word here, said equalization programs can be captured and destroyed by politics and bad designs. That's what's happening in this province. He said they didn't take in enough account of how political interference with the operations of such programs can outweigh the good intentions behind them. Think about that statement. Professor Buchanan pointed out that a defensible program must not be captured by political coalitions in equalization receiving provinces and used for their narrow political purposes, such as enriching programs that benefit only their supporters. This is all the things that Nova Scotia is living.
This is all that's happening.
He's nailing it. Equalization only works if its benefits flow to all residents of a receiving province.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
No.
Its original intent might have been distorted or undermined by constant political tinkering over the years, as well as by poor design in such ways as natural resource revenues are handled. The perverse incentives for equalization receiving provinces to engage in imprudent behavior in order to maximize their equalization entitlement. I'm reading that one again. I want you to soak I want you to soak this up. In its original intent might have been distorted by the undermining and constant political tinkering over the years, as well as by poor design, such as in the way natural resources revenues are handled and perverse incentives for equalization provinces to engage in imprudent behavior in order to maximize their equalization entitlement. This imprudent behavior he's talking about is keeping one area of a province poor so that the other area that's developing gets more money.
But like the north side, the Glace Bay side, whatever they choose that time in that term that they're in.
But that's the imprudent behavior he is referring to.
Yeah.
And,
they can't get it without us doing badly.
We generate it, and they know that. So, we have to ask ourselves some of the stuff here. And when we ask these questions, we wanted to talk a little bit about Irving Shipbuilding. So, I sent you a link, Janet, about Irving Shipbuilding, or Marie, one of you. Back in a few years back, they got $304 million from Nova Scotia government to help prepare for the construction of the Royal Canadian Navy. The government's assistance package announced Friday includes a forgivable loan of $260 million.
What?
Another forgivable loan, Janet.
They're already billionaires. Why are they getting $260 million?
Because they're money.
And a repayable loan of $44 million for human resources and technical.
Well, as a Nova Scotian, that pisses me off, and we should all be angry over them getting a non-forgivable loan.
You should be. And Mr. Irving's comment was the CEO of Irving Shipbuilding Corporate made no apology for accepting Nova Scotia taxpayers' money.
Wow, we should all bend over right now. Everyone bend over.
Yep.
We're really having a hard time, though, accepting the fact that these things all happen without us being able to do anything about it. It's all of the higher power, the hierarchy that is choosing this stuff. And we're yelling and we carry on, but we need to formulate a plan. And we need to come together with something where there is going to be no disputing it. We need to be able to put it.
No, accountability is what needs to be done on all levels of government.
Of course. Now, just because you know that little bit of information, and that's only a bit of what I got here. I got a lot more. But I want Charlie to read a comment because we've recently started to follow, and your followers should as well. Graham Steele. Have you ever heard of Graham? You're
recently, thanks to you.
Just if you're from Nova Scotia or Cape Breton, Google his name, watch his YouTube videos, and just pay attention to what he says. Now, here's a quote from his newest book, Charlie. I get you to read that, And pay attention, Janet and Marie, to what he says here.
The truth is that Province House is not the place from which Nova Scotia is governed. The real decision-making about everything, health, education, support for the poor and disabled, justice, transportation, happens behind closed doors in office buildings scattered around downtown Halifax.
It's true. And it happens in downtown Sydney too, because look at this one here this document that I'm putting on the screen is hand-delivered document that was sent by Marty Chernin, all right, from the HRDL group, who hand-delivered this document into the mayor's office. And it was in one of the YouTube council chamber meetings that the mayor said right on the YouTube feed that Marty Chernin delivered it to her office himself. Okay, so if we've got business developers hand delivering letters stating that you reneged on our agreement. Oh, I'm crying. Why did you renege on our agreement? I'm going to lose all these millions of dollars, all this time and effort I put into it. Oh, well, it's not good for the community now. Oh, now all of a sudden it's good for the community again because Marty cried.
It's a problem when one has too much power in anything. Let's face it, right? But I mean, like I do understand he does good for the community, as Russ was pointing out earlier. But there are things where you gotta be able to spread it out a little bit. There should never be one human being holding so much power over a council or a municipality.
I know you like Marty Chernin, but I'm feeling he's more for himself than for the actual general population here. Just my
We'll see what happens in October with this new budget that they got to come up with. I would be very interested to see like where it's going to go. But what do you guys think? Like, where should it be going in your opinion, for real? Like,
no, fix the library. They got mold in the library. Remediate it, for God's sake. There's mold remediator program people out there, for God's sake. Build a whole new building. Come on. Morning, Princess.
That's for later in life. That's for once we all get ourselves on board with the way Halifax is being run, right? Once we are prosperous in some way, then we can be worrying about libraries and such. That's what I feel like. But they insist that is progress.
I always had the belief when it comes to a library that because this is a new world. I mean, this is 2021 and the world is changing, and we are known now as a little bit of a tech community here. We have been for a number of years, very fast internet and CBRM. We're a little bit of a tech hub. So if we're that, why don't we grow the two together? I've always said that the new library should include a media lab. So a media lab is available for Cape Breton Originals, the NSEF, anyone else out there that's looking to do good for the community. You can use the media lab to develop professional content that will reach further audiences and so forth. And you can do that in a library. Library and media is hand in hand. It's always been the way. You always went to the library to look at any sort of historical media like microfiche or films or whatever.
Right.
So they should have incorporated the two together, and there's no reason why they couldn't have done it inside the new NSCC campus. They got all kinds of room and buildings there. There's no reason why they couldn't have done it all at one time. But
I agree with you there.
I mean, there's options for a library. To just stick a building up because it's time we get one, I don't really buy into that. I really think that there's bigger fish to fry in the CBRM when it comes to tax rates, commercial and residential, poverty, unemployment.
The poverty.
Our unemployment rate here is massive. People don't realize it. Yes, it's reported at 16 to 18%, but that's only for the people who are not working and receiving benefits. I bet you we all know 5 or 10 people who are not working and not receiving benefits.
That's
so
right.
Unemployment numbers probably more in the 30s, not the 16 or 18s. It's probably way up there.
Yeah, because we only see the tip of the iceberg whenever we're seeing poverty, really, right?
Right. So, what's your thoughts here, Charlie?
And it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the price of rent has gone up for everybody everywhere. I'm not.
Well,
and that has to happen because of the taxes, right? Because the property owners now have to pay the taxes. They've got to make some profit. But
I want to read some of the comments.
Even at the national level, you're having it from 2008, 2009, when you had the meltdown in the financial economy.
Right.
The bailout at that point was to bail out the banks. They
Yes.
were they
Because
were
I
They
care
were the
about a
worries.
bank bailout. The banks. When's the banks ever bailed us out except give us high fees every month to use their service to keep our goddamn money? What kind of shit is that?
And then they brag.
You charging me every time I use my money? What a great concept for them.
Well, that's what, and the bailout during this pandemic in the 1 year, our billionaires in this country increased their billions by 78 billion.
Right? That's what I'm saying, Charles.
Yes, I actually shared a post.
Billionaires. The poor billionaires. God love them. Let's hurry up.
The money runs the system, both here in this province as well.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, everywhere in the world, really. But the problem is this trickle-down effect has never, ever worked or happened. This trickle-down economy that they always talk of. This is ridiculous. We need to invest in ourselves.
It only trickles up.
So
right. It stays right where it's at.
So Joseph Bono Sr. has a comment. You should be pissed off at the fact your federal government and their affiliates have been blazingly stealing the equalization payments for the Canadian people the entire time. How about we start footing around these corrupt politicians and call a thief a thief? Why are these thieves still being allowed to not only rob the public blind, but to get away with their crimes scot-free? I mean, exactly. That's what we're talking about here. How can we stop it?
Well, if you're looking at it, the courts are part.
The courts are pretty
part of the problem.
They're pretty filled up, though.
Yeah, there is a decision that we came across in 1950, which stated the Constitution does not belong to Parliament or to any of the legislatures. It belongs to the country, and it is there that citizens are entitled to the protections that are enshrined in it. Well, that is a ruling by the Supreme Court in 1950, and it dealt with, ironically, the province of Nova Scotia and the federal government.
Ironically, it's right.
They made that, to me, wide sweeping statement because at the time, the province of Nova Scotia and the federal government were going to try to do a switcheroo over jurisdictions. And see, the judges ruled of the Supreme Court, the Constitution does not belong to you. What was assigned to you exclusively in 1867 belongs to the country. You cannot begin to manipulate what occurred there. However, McDonald, in the appeal court decision over our case here, the CBRM going to the Supreme Court in Nova Scotia, in that appeal division, he ruled that only the two parties which were privy to what is represented by Section 36 can deal with it. And he overruled the Supreme Court, but no one wants to discuss that.
Everyone ignored it.
No, they don't want to.
That sounds like a dirty judge to me. It sounds like they had a little pre-dinner before the court ruling. They made some drinks decisions, and then the court happened and made it look all official. Bullshit.
Well, in this country,
just as Mr. Steele pretty much says, it's behind closed doors.
Yeah, but the government appoints the judges in Canada.
I know.
In the States, they get elected. Here, they get appointed. If you're the government, you appoint a judge, and you want him to do something for you, he's going to do it.
Of course he is. Guess what you'll do? You'll unappoint him.
Yeah. Well, they should answer again. The judges should answer to the people, not the government.
You've got three people making bad decisions, and then they become bad laws.
Yeah.
But as we've been saying all along, and Graham Steele reinforces it, nothing is going to change if you're going to depend upon the politicians. They believe in the status quo, and their first priority is to get reelected.
Exactly.
That's their first priority. The rest of it is they adhere to the game, which is the party control of what they're able to do. We've got examples here with Callaway and Baptiste, but we had the previous ones being Cuzner and Eichen. They went 19 years, and they're enjoying it. The rewards are too great, if you want. They're on over $100,000 pension.
Mhm.
Now Callaway is drawing what, 186,000 plus.
Wow.
That's the basic MP salary, and they get an
Wow.
increase. They get an increase every April.
Yeah, but
Oh.
that goes in heart and hand to Janet's comment she just received from someone, because we should be holding them accountable, but they just ignore
Yes.
it. You know, Mike Kellaway and Jaime Batiste, they ignore this subject. We just met with Jaime Batiste. He
Here-
sat
here-
there and passed out information to us that had nothing to do with equalization.
Just
I know. It's craziness.
And then
That guy,
so
don't even get us started.
They fill the paper with words, and then they say that they've addressed it. They haven't. They haven't answered the question. But we allow them to do it. Mike Kellaway.
Yep, they dance all around everything that's the subject.
He stood on stage 3 years ago and made a promise that if he was elected, he was going to get the NSEF and the feds and the province to the table on equalization. He hasn't done it. He hasn't done it.
And
but see, when you don't have the citizens involved in this to the extent that they should be, you get these people reelected and reelected. And they just cater to the little things in their constituency and avoid the major items. You know, there is
electing these people that do nothing time after time and are known thieves. Who are these stupid dummies? I'm sorry.
Well, they're the people that already have money. They already have, so they're not worrying about changing the status quo.
With money that got the Liberals back in, because if so, we'd be a
There's
have
enough.
and not the have.
If you look at the percentage of who actually votes, see, there's where, because a lot of poor people do not vote.
Charlie nails it, that if all the people who didn't vote voted and formed their own
we'd be
thing,
on a whole different ball
they
game.
would change the province and the country.
Yeah, it'd be all different.
I don't know how we're going to
I
draw
agree.
these non-voters in. Like, what do we got to do? Walk around naked and like give them a handshake? How do we bring them in to vote? I don't know how. I wish I knew, because I'd be knocking on the door telling, let's go vote. Yeah. So we've got
It might come to that. It might come to the fact that you have to challenge the citizens whether they did vote. Because like we're seeing 40-some% don't vote. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start doing like something where, okay, if you didn't vote, then you're going to have to leave the country because clearly you don't appreciate being here.
Should be mandatory.
But some people will not vote because of the electoral system, which contributes to
they don't trust it.
It's true. What they're trying to hate.
Yeah.
I mean,
we need proportional representation, and it was studied in 2005 by 161 citizens from all walks of life out in BC, and they picked a particular form of proportional representation called single transferable vote, and that's a multi-member district. You don't lose any votes. You can transfer them to another, but by virtue of the fact
you're voting in the people.
By virtue of the fact you can run it without political parties, none of the political parties would support it. But it was picked by the citizens. Right. And that's where we're at. Even PEI, if you're following it, just a few years back, they held a plebiscite on proportion. It passed, a little over 50%.
Oh, yeah? I've got to look at that.
The premier of today said not enough people voted, so we won't bother with it.
Oh, for God's sake.
So had a roundtable, a radio roundtable with CBC, and she had other members of the council on there when she was going to, when she was running in the election last year for council. And she said, why does downtown need 2 libraries? They couldn't answer that question. And then how do you guys want to spend the money? And they couldn't answer that question either. They knew they wanted all this money, and they got all this money, and they didn't even put in a reason to spend that money, but yet they got it anyway. So, I mean, how did they get it? Was it just because they handshook, had a great conversation? Like, what did they talk about what was needed for the money? It sure as shit couldn't have been a library when they were probably looking across at the library.
If they're using equalization money to build a library, how is that benefiting all the residents of the CBRM?
Clearly not, right?
That's the problem. Like Cape Breton itself brings that need in for equalization. And you got to look at the people in Inverness and over in Mabu and up in Shettican and in Inverness. And how are they, and Ingonish, and how are they going to benefit from the CBRM receiving a thing? If we can address the issues with equalization that's set out in the Canadian Constitution, it will fix itself. That's the problem. That's where the manipulation by politics and big business, who seem to think they run this province and country, but they don't.
They are, Russ. Yes.
Well, yeah, but you know why, Janet? That's because people are sitting on their ass and allowing it to happen.
Yes.
If you
Right.
don't
People
hold
got to
your
stand up and
politicians
speak up.
accountable for this, and with this equalization,
Mhm.
listen. The NSEF is going to hold every politician accountable when it comes to equalization. We are not dropping the ball on that. It is not our job to go and fight the taxes and the poverty and everything else that's wrong with our island. This is what we are fighting. And this is what we've been fighting for 25 years.
Wow.
We will hold our politicians accountable when it comes to equalization. And this is extra 15 million is equalization. It has an intended purpose. And I'm sorry, but it's not a library.
No. I mean, the library's down on that library services, but we already have a library that's got perfectly good services. We don't need a second one.
We just need to clean it up and make it work for now.
If we build a library, we should build it so that it benefits all of Cape Breton and
Everybody.
CBRM especially. So if it had a media lab in it, and there's lots of empty space around here that we could do that in. If we had a media lab in there, then all of the businesses throughout the CBRM could use that media lab, develop better commercials for themselves, hold meetings and virtual presentations. They could reach customers all over the world using that media lab. If Janet and Marie have a business and they're selling soap and whatever, you might be reaching people all over the world because you have use of a media lab that's in a state-of-the-art library, that whatever, so that you might hire 10 people more or 20 people more. What does that do? It brings more taxes into the coffers. It reduces poverty. It reduces unemployment. All that stuff does. All this money has got to stop benefiting the one or the two or the three people that it benefits. And that's not just in the CBRM, that's in the province of Nova Scotia as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where it's necessary with all of the public money that there is a full transparency on what is done with it, so that all of the public, as even with the equalization, even the healthcare funding, healthcare funding coming in from the federal government to the provinces into Nova Scotia and to the other provinces is only around 22%. It's been lowered over a number of years. There's been the footprint of the federal percentage has been declining over a number of years, and it's
when we need it to be increasing.
It was originally 50-50 cost share.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now it's down this low.
Wow.
And then when we have a pandemic hits you, in other words, if you were trying to be prepared to be unprepared, this is what you would be doing. Now
we are so lucky. We're lucky we didn't get hit the way other people did, because we would have all been dead on this little island. And nobody even knows or cares, because they're like, they should really be speaking up for themselves, I'm sure is what people are saying, which is why we're all doing this.
What, Marie?
We're going to lose health care as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we already have, guys.
Conservatives.
It's dangling on a thread right now.
There is a registered charity out in Calgary called the Canadian Constitution Foundation. And it's also registered in the United States. Big business has put all kinds of money in. There is a so-called, I'll call him so-called Dr. Brian Day. Okay? He's the face of this challenge. It is a constitutional challenge to kill the Canada Health Act.
Yeah.
He's lost in BC at that level, but he will appeal it to the Supreme Court.
Oh, he will.
Canada. And big money is coming in from big business and the wealthy to kill. He wants to privatize it.
Of course. You imagine us on this island with privatized health care.
But
what in God's name?
Not going to work.
He's being allowed by the government, and Callaway wouldn't answer this. He's being allowed, and that's what it was in an open letter to him the last time. And this particular so-called registered charity is using the income tax system to get tax receipt donations to kill the government's main plank in its program, public health care.
Well, see, the thing is, the more they damage our healthcare system and make it look awful like they do now, it's going to look like saviors and heroes come when it's privatized.
That's right. That's
they're
kind of what the plan is.
Listen, there's a lot wrong. There's a lot wrong.
It's the same with the equalization.
It
Yeah.
is the same.
It's 100. The equalization is 100% a federal program, right? It's by its design, by its implementation. The provinces they're just a recipient. Then the federal government comes along out of the blue after they've enshrined it in the Constitution Act of 1982. Then they transfer this, quote, unconditionally. There is no provision.
Right.
There's no law on
And
that.
there's the problem.
Yeah, but it doesn't exist,
When
Marie.
you question it, they tell you, well, you have to hold the provincial government accountable. But when you try to hold the provincial government accountable, what they throw back in your face is it's unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And unless the
Quite the circle.
public gets interested and gets concerned over it and votes accordingly, get rid of these people that are not doing anything, like Callaway's, etc. Well,
And Jaime Batiste.
Look at Batiste as well. Yeah, look at Mumbercat. Now he's in opposition. Have you heard from him?
No.
Yeah, really.
No. Exactly.
Nice
Our
vacation there.
representative system is a joke, is
Yep.
what it
Yes,
is.
it is.
They
It
represent the party, and the party controls what is going on. The
Mhm.
party is then controlled by the moneyed interest.
Always. It's always.
When we talk about our correspondence, now you got to remember the NSEF, which I'm in the office of today. The NSEF has got 25 years of correspondence, and one day when this subject makes its way to a national news source or media, the governments are going to be embarrassed at the amount of correspondence. I'm going to show you one drawer of one file cabinet, and this is all
see this. I
correspondence.
think people need to know this. They need to know this about the
See those
NSEF.
files?
They're not just a little group. They've been
That's just
fighting for us
one
for
drawer.
years.
That's one drawer of a file cabinet that that is just loaded with documentation back and forth with prime ministers, justice ministers, you name it. Charlie wrote David Lametti and asked him for the legal justification that this money is transferred unconditional. It doesn't exist.
A response?
So the minute he asked that question, they ignore him.
Yeah.
And it's the same for the last 25 years with other justice ministers, including Jody Wilson-Raybould. She was asked that question. Miss Raybould, where's the legal justification for transferring this money? No comment. Never hear from Jody Wilson-Raybould again. So, a spade is a spade. And it doesn't matter. When you're in government, your job is to protect government. And they don't care what you do to do it. But when the people ask you, who pay you, elect you, and employ you, when they ask you that question and you ignore it, you're hurting the people who elected you.
Yeah.
I don't care how people look at it.
Big
David
time.
Lametti is hurting the people of Canada when he will not answer Charles Sampson's question. Where is the legal justification? We've had lawyers on our board. Our board members have political scientists on our board. They know it doesn't exist. They've already researched it. So when we're asking these people these questions and they start to ignore it, there's the problem. But all talking about the healthcare funding, everything else. Today, we're talking about one thing. The CBRM has received $15 million in equalization from a promise that Mr. Houston made to the NSEF, not the CBRM.
That's
I don't
right.
know if you guys are aware of that, but the
Made it
NSEF,
to you guys.
here that looking at you, Charles and Russ are two of them. There was several other people who had met with Tim Houston's representatives way back before he was even elected as the party leader. Before he even ran against Cecil Clark, he sent representatives down here to meet with us and talked about doubling this. And he just followed through on his promise. When he got elected, he followed through on his promise. But it's a drop in the bucket. They have to sit down and hear that we generate over $500 million for the municipalities.
Yeah.
So you can't give us $15 million when it should be $250 million. And that's where our mayor and our councillors have to sit down and ask the tough questions and negotiate like hell for this new memorandum of understanding that Tim Houston has given them 1 year to negotiate. So if our MLA, if our councillors and our mayor don't stand up with the NSFM and demand transparency of where that $567 million is spent in Nova Scotia every year, then they're letting us all down. They're letting us all down. There's no two ways
I
about
agree
it.
with you.
No different than David Lametti is letting Charles down when it comes to the legal justification.
Without accountability and transparency, we're all being let down because they're leading us blindly into whatever they see fit,
Right.
and not what's right for the population.
Cape Breton has been used, abused, and kicked to the curb by
Yep, and we're
every
so used to
government
it.
that's
We're
been in this
like,
province. Every government. Mark McNeil is not wrong. It's time to say sayonara to the whole works of them, because and that meant
Absolutely.
leaving the province, leave the country. It's been disgusting what our governments
Yeah.
have allowed.
we should be our own little Iceland. We should
Oh.
run it like Iceland. If you've ever seen their government system, much like what you were talking about, where it's kind of like the elected parties are all kind of equal. Yes, the seats are always there, 3, 3, and 3, right? Let's pretend it's Conservative, Liberal, and NDP.
Yeah.
You've only got 3 seats of each person. You can re-elect whoever you want to hold those seats, but those seats are always going to be those 3 different points of view, and you're going to be able to have people come in kind of like a real democracy. But that's only one little tiny idea, right? Imagine what we could do on our own on this island with the resources we actually have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We've always been
We
known
really
as
could do better.
the liberal stronghold. And you
Yes.
know what? They
Yeah.
just proved it. They just proved it again here. You know what? It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, your liberal MPs can take an AK-47, go down and plow everyone down the streets. They're still going to get elected.
I know.
I don't know
Yep.
what it is about the
Because
way
their
people
mothers and
vote.
fathers told them.
Well, then
That's from
your mother and
before.
father told you a lie, because that has created so much corruption in this island. It has created so much corruption. It's not even funny. Like, you just
Absolutely.
can't
The corruption is
constantly-
probably keeping their kids employed in a certain sector, and they're
Well, you
getting
got to think of that too.
tax. And I mean, I've seen it. It works
The
that
way
way.
to fix it all is open the books and show the people.
Yes.
Yes.
It's our money. Open
Mhm.
the books
Yes.
and show the people.
Yeah.
Where's the money
lie.
being spent? And
If there's
allow us to audit it, question it, and review it.
Yeah.
Now, this last meeting that I just saw over the last couple of days, it literally did show up all I don't know if you guys got a chance. I sent it to you, Charles. I think I finally sent you the right link. But it was for their on-council meeting, and it was about their budget, listing out every single thing, where it's at. And I like seeing that. It's just that I haven't had a chance to look through it myself. I'm no mathematician, as Janet will tell you. But I mean, it needs to be looked at by people who actually do know where should be going, because it's right there. It's all out there in that meeting session. So the transparency is there, but we got to be willing to actually be bored enough to sit still and listen and pay attention to what they're actually telling us too.
You know what? I'm going to give some credit where credit is due. And I'm sorry, Charlie, I'm butting you off here. I'm going to give some credit where credit due. Our municipality, our mayor and our councilors, they run this municipality on $150 million a year. We know that every similar municipality across Canada is around $400 to $500 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we are and it's exactly the amount, 150 plus the 250 we're supposed to be getting from the province, puts us right where we should be with every other municipality our size across Canada. But we don't get that. So I find that our government, in our municipal government here, does a good job. They keep the lights on, they keep the streets somewhat organized. The place looks pretty good. We've got a little bit of development going on here, but they're operating in this municipality on a shoestring. There should be a lot more money in our coffers, but the problem is the provincial government. The provincial government are the ones who are run by big business that keep us in a situation so that they can receive more money in equalization. It was just a matter of a couple of years ago. Karen Casey wrote a letter in the paper that the province had a $230 million surplus, and they were going to build a convention center and a new waterfront museum.
I remember.
And it came from equalization. Now, how blatant do you have to be as a politician?
That's just so clear, right?
And say that when you don't generate or receive equalization in Halifax, they don't qualify for it.
And yet they get all the majority of the money. Isn't that convenient?
and had the nerve to tell everybody basically. It was like a boon to them. Oh, look, we got this bag of money.
He took our face and rubbed it right in it, and then
Yep.
kicked us in the ass and threw us to the curb where they want us.
Yep, and we all sat here going, "Oh, darn it!"
Yeah.
Instead of like standing up and yelling like we should be every day like this. We should be yelling every day until actual large media actually gets a hold of this and actually looks into this.
Don't even get
And
me
I
going
mean,
on that.
But our local council over the years has been remiss in presenting the information to argue in their own interest. They're playing a party politics game as well. Too many of them. Over the years.
Can be the case.
You know, the information that we have compiled is not ours. It's the government.
No.
They have
exactly.
They have access to this over the years, but if you're to go back and look at the only one that started this thing was John Morgan, right? To draw attention to it. And then what do we have? We have a mayor after that called Cecil Clark who got elected twice, and he fought against Morgan in the public, and he got elected twice. So the problem here is our local representatives as well as our local population who continue to reward people who fight against the area.
Yep. Rewarding for bad behavior every time here.
Exactly. Break your camera, Janet.
Who was the bad mayor?
You know what his new job? You know what his new job is, right?
Oh.
He's going to fix your health care.
What?
He's the man responsible for recruiting the doctors for Nova Scotia.
Oh, we're all
dead. My God in heaven!
We're all dying. Great.
I don't know. I haven't confirmed it, but we've been told that. We've been told that he's
That's the road.
Recruited to recruit doctors.
Well, here's what's wrong with Cape Breton is what happened to it.
Well, we've definitely had some issues with some of the people in power, but I'm going to say now, like, as long as we keep them accountable to some degree, it can't go far, right? But it's when we just give up and we slack off, and it's like nobody's paying attention to where the money's spent, the things get really out of hand.
But that's the problem, Marie.
A favorite.
That's the problem. The problem is in this municipality is that we do not hold our politicians accountable. They have to be held accountable. And for instance, this money is equalization money, and we've been told it's equalization. It comes from equalization. It is equalization, and we get it as equalization. So we're going to insist that our municipality uses it to equalize. That's it. That's it. We're going to stand up to that. If we have to protest and get massive people on the streets in front of there, we will do that. We will do whatever we have to do to make sure that our politicians use that money to equalize us. And that hasn't happened for a lot of years in Cape Breton.
How true, Andre.
No.
Yeah, there's a lot to be done. There's always going to be a lot to be done because as long as they're in charge, we're always going to be getting the shitty end of the stick. That's it.
Yeah.
So we got to keep fighting this fight. We have to have more people come with us and because it's basically David versus Goliath here. And until we all become, like you shared that thing on our page, Marie, it showed all the people becoming the shark. And then the ones that were controlling everything we
become the net that's coming after the shark eventually, right?
We need to be the network to control how things work because we, the people, are the ones that are getting shafted.
And it's supposed to be for us. These things are supposed to be to make all of us at least at an even keel. We should not be having have-nots in an island where it's so few people, really. I mean, if we're getting this money, can we not do something that's more useful than a library that looks pretty? Because we really do need a lot out there right now.
I'd be happy if the roads were roadworthy, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
But see, that's municipal roads, provincial roads. Then we got that issue. See, it's only a municipal road up to so far, I was told. I remember during the election time, I was like, what? This is why nothing can get done. Because one will push the blame onto the other each time. Everybody's pushing it back and forth, right? I need this road done. Well, that's not my issue, they tell you.
That's the motive of our operandus, the regular motive, Marie. It's always push it. Push the blame to the next level, Yeah,
they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
All we ask is that maybe your followers pay attention to Graham Steele have a listen to what he has to say, whether you Google him and read some of his documents or even watch a few YouTube videos. Have a
Yeah,
listen
he's
to
got a
what
TED
he-
Talk. That's a great one.
because there's a man who's a Rhodes Scholar. Now, that's not someone who's stupid. I'll tell you that. That's
No.
a smart
Mhm.
man and a smart individual. Also a lawyer and has spent a number of years in government. Did not like what he saw with corruption in government
Nova Scotia government.
in Nova Scotia, got out of it
Right.
and started talking about it by way of books, videos, and talks, public talks.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it is up to you and your audience and every one of our audience members and NSEF, Capers for Healthcare, and all the different ones to start paying attention to what Mr. Graham Steele is saying. He's telling us what the problem is in Nova Scotia, and
Yeah.
it's our problem tenfold in Cape Breton.
Exactly.
So pay attention to that.
Yeah, Sharon, we do need a protest. We're going to have to get something together, just so complicated in today's world with COVID, restricting everybody here, there, and everywhere. So we're working on it. It's something we've got in the back of our minds. But guys, this was a great show today. It was a lot of information. So I'd like to keep up to date as those tests that's going on with the water out there in Floral Heights. So we'll do a follow-up show on when you get
We have more information to share after today. We have another more around tests are back. We'll have a meeting with the CBRM solid waste this afternoon.
Oh, good.
And we're going to talk, but just to let your audience know in a little bit of a way, there was over 1.3 million bags of oil cleaned up off our shores from the Kurdistan tanker and buried in your municipal dumps. That oil is rotting in the ground now. And is it causing the high cancer rates in the area? We don't know. We're asking officials that now, and we're starting to talk about it. But there's a lot of problems in the CBRM with the oil cleanup that has happened, because in that the Kurdistan happened in '79, but the same thing happened in 1970 with the Arrow. So there's millions and millions of liters of oil that have cleaned up, and they're in our dumps. And they're seeping into the ground. Are we drinking them in our water? Is that why there's cancer is high here? Father Maroon has spent thousands of dollars thus far, and thousands more to spend to do the testing. So, and we're uncovering some stuff that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that's also, we definitely want you to keep us in the loop on that too, because having poison in our community members' backyards is alarming.
It's very bad.
Yeah. There's a lot to tell you about that, but that's a whole other show for a whole other day. So
all right, well, we'll keep that to be continued then. I want to thank you, Russ and Charles, for coming on and letting everybody know what's going on. Everyone share this stream if you can. So the more people that share it, the more we get the information out, and the more that people will open their eyes and see what's going on right around them. So Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your comments, your views. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for this.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Cape Breton Originals and NSEF out.